FM, your ultimate guide to healthy living, this and every Sunday, 2:05. If it impacts on your health, your well-being, we'll definitely talk about it. Not just a program, a promise. 99.7 FM is not just a frequency, it's a family. Let me do my praise. I'll take one from Joe Metal. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We're logged on live on Facebook and YouTube. Ultimate Health with Nortey by Nature. That's righty. Without him, we're nothing. You're my everything.
All right, listen. William me wrong, come here. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, can you live without him? Can you live without Joy 99.7 FM? Many thanks for joining me and keeping me company today. Nortey by Nature, the program is Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. Yeah, we can't live without him. And when we break ourselves down to the lowest unit, we are talking about DNA. You know he's another deoxyribonucleic acid. And I've got the biomedical specialist in the studio again, Dr. Dennis Edujevi. Hey, sorry, Edu as A. Yeah, Edu JC, sorry. I almost got his DNA wrong. All the way up there in Kumasi. In the studio, I have Seth Ajiman and Augustine Sego. All of them top-notch biomedical scientists. As we go along, I'll roll out their wonderful credentials. And me, I'm just the speaker. They are the MPs representing you. So last week we delved into this whole quest of demystifying DNA and DNA or paternity testing. We learned what it was about, the basis of every human being that is immutable. You can't change your DNA. And thankfully, by medical and technological advancement, we can verify that. And we've been looking at the scientific processes that allow us to do that. And of course, we've moved forward to harness that to understand and identify conclusively fatherhood or paternity. And in some instances, we can even go further and do maternal or maternity validation, right? So I've got them in the studio. Seth and Augustine, you're welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are here with all your building blocks. Right? How's your week been?
Yeah.
How's your week been?
It's been tough though, but we said through.
Okay. Seth?
Yeah.
All good?
God has been good.
God has been good.
I said that Russia is disturbing us.
Oh,
We hope there is peace between them and Ukraine soon.
Okay, don't lead me into talking about geopolitical hypocrisy and all those kinds of things there.
Yes,
But we pray for
Yeah,
our
we
brothers
pray.
and sisters out there. I've gotten good news that some Ghanaian students have landed in Romania. You know, many of us do go outside for various reasons, including study, right? Some of them have found their way to Romania. I saw a video where they were trying to make contact with their consul general. So, well, there's some good news, but we hope this thing will de-escalate and the world can deal with a proper enemy like the COVID virus and not human viruses, right? Dennis, how are you in Kumasi?
Yeah, boss,
Yeah.
I'm doing well. And regards to my senior colleague in the studio.
All right.
But actually, I am in Kintampo. They are okay. So
Hey,
no
sorry.
big deal. Central of Ghana.
You know, as soon as I said Kumasi, I knew there was something wrong with the DNA. Right? Thank you for matching it with Kintampo.
Yeah.
But the thinking from last week was that there was a great deal of interest and lots of questions were not properly addressed or clarified, even though we did our best within our 50-something minutes. So we're going over it. But today we want to clarify the procedure, the requirements, and of course, how it comes about that sometimes we get some errors or some more controversy. Indeed, as we were leaving the studio last week, Augustine Sego was telling me that when it comes to firstborns, sometimes the pink sheets can be shaky, right? I'll get him to explain that. So if you joined us, we're talking about DNA and paternity testing. So gentlemen, you're welcome once again. Just a quick recap. Every human being has DNA, right? And it forms the blueprint of who they are. They inherit part of this or 50% of this from their mother and another 50% from their father, right? And anytime there's a question arising as to paternity or fatherhood of a particular child, we go into a process where we can take DNA samples from the child, and what you taught me to understand was the alleged father. Alleged until proven so, right? So we go through these processes which you explained last week, and then we come out with certain outcomes. Today we want to go over those things and in many instances elaborate. So one of the things I want to get clear is that last week, Augustine, you said when we do these processes, you mentioned that there's a reference point. And one of the key points you made was that we do not have an African index, or we don't have our own index as a reference, and we use the African American index. Somebody quickly texted me after the program. Can you just explain that? What does it mean? Yes, Seth.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity, and Good afternoon to Dennis. It's nice seeing you once again. In our laboratory practice, everywhere in the world, we work with standards or references.
Okay.
Standards are proving algorithms or proving results that is not altered.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to paternity testing, apart from the technical laboratory analysis of samples and other data and doing your bioinformatics, there's also some mathematics part where we're able to calculate what we call probability index.
Okay.
Now, probability index tells us the chance that the person is the father or is not the father.
Okay.
Technical tells the chance that the person can be excluded as a biological father or a relationship or otherwise.
Okay.
Now, science always works with a reference.
Right.
Unfortunately, currently, if you look at the DNA taxonomy or the DNA environment, we don't really have a reference index for African population.
Okay.
So when you look at the human genome sequencing, African contributed very less percentage. I don't remember. Maybe Dr. Jesse will be able to help me. So
Okay.
African contribution to even the human genome sequencing was very small. One, because we don't do a lot of sequencing in Africa.
Okay.
We don't have these platforms, even though we have the scientists with the knowledge and expertise, but there hasn't been enough.
We don't have that.
investment.
We lack that.
We lack those.
So what do
things.
we have in place? You mentioned referencing to the African American database. Just quickly, what does that?
So the African American database was generated from the human genome sequencing project, which has been done many years ago, and they still keep refining it.
Right,
You know,
okay.
but they look at how closer should you be to your biological relationship to say that you could be from that.
Okay.
As we said, it cannot be 100%, but there are cut-off points. So for African Americans, about 99.97%.
All right. Okay. Let me just bring in Dennis. He wanted some, supporting fire from you. So this reference range, right? It means there's an offside rule, but the linesman in this case, we're using another reference point. Is there anything you want to add, Dennis, to what he just said?
Oh, no, Nisho, I think fundamentally that's what my brother has said. You are benchmarking the processes you have identified from the father, the child, and the mother against a reference. And that reference, ideally, you would have wished is all black and black, possibly even Ghanaians to Ghanaians. If really we have had verified and validated database for Ghanaians in terms of the complete genome of Ghanaians, if we have it and it's all validated, accepted worldwide as per the standard, then whenever you are doing any of these tests for Ghanaians, you have a benchmark. And that is what my brother is saying, that we don't have that full genome database. And for that matter, the closest you want to do is to do the African American database. So I think he's right.
Right. Thank you for that. Abeku, I'm just getting something from Dede in Maryland asking if our Facebook link is active and live. We are supposed to be. Right, so we're live on YouTube. The Facebook, there's a challenge. Thanks for drawing our attention. Dede in Maryland, I need to check your DNA. Your DNA must have some Joy FM strands in it, right? But let's come back to basics. So last week there was a lot of questions and interests. Let's look at the procedure. All right, we've understood what DNA is. I know by all means somebody will ask us again, but let's try and move forward quickly. We know what DNA is. We know what the testing is. We are taking a sample either from the inside of your cheek, the buccal sample, or we can use any other samples, and then we take this thing through a process. Let's look at the requirements. You know, for some tests they say don't do this, don't eat before you come. Mr. Sego, when you're going for a DNA test, what is required? If we can hit that very quickly so that our listeners understand.
All right, Nortey.
Yeah.
When you are set to go for DNA test, either by walking or by instruction from the court, the requirement is that first, you need to sort the consent.
All right.
because you are going to deal with 3 persons
Primarily, yeah.
primarily.
Yeah.
Okay. First, you are dealing with the focus, which is the child in question.
Okay.
Whether the child is grown like you or like older, is still the focus.
The product of the union.
Yes.
All right.
It's still the focus.
The child. Yes.
Then the alleged.
Okay.
After the alleged, we have the mother's consent if the focus is minor.
Okay. So let me just break that down. You need the consent of the child if the child is above 18.
Exactly.
You need the consent of the mother.
Exactly.
If the child is below 18, you need the consent of the mother on behalf of that child.
Of that child.
Right. What about the alleged father?
The alleged father in the
Does he provide consent?
in the court process?
Mm-hmm.
In the court process, the alleged father must consent to do the test
Okay.
before it's already. So it's automatically, but then still on the documentation procedures,
Mhm.
yes, it's done.
All right. So
He
we
or
cannot
she.
assume the consent of the alleged father.
No.
It must be documented.
Yes.
Is this written? Is it verbal? How is it done?
It's written.
Written. So these are documents that can be verified.
Everything over the DNA must have a trail, must
Okay.
have a proof,
Right.
which we call it in our terms sample custody.
Sample custody.
Custody.
All right. So you need all these documents, right,
Exactly.
to take and hold a sample and then do your processes. Okay. So listeners, you've heard that. But in movie stories, especially Ghanaian movies, Nigerian movies, all sorts of co-meaning is done. Can you take somebody's DNA without their consent? Let's leave the minor out. We've explained that a minor can be consent can be given on behalf of a minor. Can you just do some underhand things and say, well, I ate with you, you took the spoon, and then you went to MedLab or wherever, and then decided that MDS Land said, this is a spoon, Nortey has used it. Can you do that, Seth?
So you see, when it comes to DNA testing, especially when we talk about the walk-in,
Okay.
you are at liberty to even request for the swab.
Walk-in
yourself.
would refer to what? Voluntary.
Voluntary.
You yourself have decided.
You yourself has decided to do, or a group of people, a family has decided to do something outside the court of law.
Okay.
Now we have something called custody. Like you are responsible for your sample. So for
Okay.
instance, if you take your own sample from the house
Mhm.
and you bring it, you sign onto it that this sample was taken from me.
You sign onto the
You
specific
sign
sample.
onto the specimen. So if you decide to take it from your uncle and you say it is you,
Mhm.
we don't verify the source of the sample, but we'll verify your identity at the time you are presenting the sample.
How do you verify my identity in
So
these
you-
times in Ghana?
Yes, so
What do you
at
use?
times we'll ask for ID
right.
cards, or we do passport
Passports.
photograph. We stick it to your consent form, then you sign. You read the consent information to understand what you are
So
doing.
actually and essentially, it is informed consent.
Informed consent.
Okay, you are aware of what you are signing.
You are aware of what you are saying.
Great.
That is why everything you do is documented, so that in case of any other thing later, we can use these documents to
support,
verify
right, okay.
whether you did it right or wrong. But in our report, we always say that provided the samples presented were from person A,
Right.
as it is signed,
Okay.
then the result is ABCD.
ABCD.
So your result will refer to the persons who consented and duly indicated their consent.
The sample.
Right,
It
on the
has to be-
sample.
yes.
Right.
Because the one doing the test probably is not the one who took the sample. So there are two things. If you come to the lab and you have somebody counseling you to take your sample,
Okay.
you will still sign, but the person who took your sample will sign to show that I took person A's sample.
Okay.
Either you sign or you write your name or you write your initials. That can be verified in every lab.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Right, 22 minutes already past the hour of 2 on Joy 99.7 FM. Dennis, let me just come quickly to you. So, if all these persons have consented, right, and therefore presented themselves for this test, are there any other requirements? We've agreed to do the test. We've validated the samples with our signatures and the consent forms. Are there any other requirements, Dennis?
Okay, so thank you very much, me. After seeking consent, it's also important to know what kind of sample you are really collecting. So it's not always just the cells from the buccal cavity. There are instances you have to use blood. There are instances you even, there is a legal case that somebody, it took cells from the cervix to be able to demonstrate that that was the mother of the children in question. So appropriate cell from a sample is also important. But of course, once you are consenting, then that tells that the sample, the lab that knows what sample to collect will do the appropriate collection.
Okay.
If it's a legal matter, then of course, you know that if these samples have been collected from the parties concerned, then you go through the process and the lab will have to release the results for the necessary interpretations at the various phases that need them.
Okay.
Then, of course, if cost is a matter that you have to pay, then the cost involved will also have to be handled before you can. Gone are the days that we used to take these tests to other laboratories outside Ghana. But thankfully, now we have labs in Ghana that are handling them, including the Trust Hospital, which is also largely government.
All right. If you just joined us, you can trust us, even though he just mentioned Trust Hospital. You can trust Joy 99.7 FM. We're breaking down DNA to its own DNA so that you and I can understand it and can use these things appropriately, even in discussions, right? It's not a light matter, and therefore there's a lot of counseling, as Seth mentioned and alluded to last week, before you go through these processes, because it could be the subject of serious toxic contention, right, amongst the stakeholders or the parties involved. So we are going through the paces as if it's just, walk in, walk out, but these are serious scientific matters, and they do tiptoe into legal matters. So that's why we are taking our time and doing a part 2. If you have any questions, concerns, WhatsApp is 055 11 11 997. I'll read a couple in a minute. And we're live on YouTube. Apologies, our Facebook is not functional currently, and our phone line, when I activate it, is 0302 216 541. Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. Dennis, just quickly on your point. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So just as we were actually discussing the database for the comparisons, I told you Trust Hospital is equally having this capacity. So
right.
I just did a cross-check with a colleague over there, and that is Vanessa Thompson, and she had indicated a group led by Dr. Aban has released a database for Akan population, but they are yet to use it. So, but as it stands now, they are still using the African American database. So hopefully, moving forward, we are likely to have an Akan population database that the next and subsequent DNAs are going to be benchmarked against them.
Oh, Dennis, do JC the assemble. Akan database. All right. You guys know me and my long nose, and my listeners know that. So you knew I was going to just the Association of Biomedical Scientists we don't have our own database locally, but I know it's serious business. And some of these things require resourcing and money. And other countries take the lead, and Africa will be whining. And even when they give us their money, we still don't get it done. But I'm glad for the Akan population. We've been as for the Ghans, they don't know where we are from. I'm not sure yet. But I mean, we're still learning, having fun, and getting it done. If you have your questions, 055 11 11 997, Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7. I was going to ask you, Dennis, just quickly. So when you are specifying the type of sample taken and all that, and those things you just added, that is the responsibility of the facility or the scientist undertaking the process, isn't it?
So definitely that is the responsibility of the scientist.
Okay.
Because they know what is an appropriate sample.
Very good.
And on the method available, what sample you have to collect. But generally, the buccal cavity cells have been used over the years and over the period.
Okay. Very well, as they say, my learned friend. If you just joined us, we're talking about DNA paternity testing on Ultimate Health, Joy 99.7 FM. I have guests who are biomedical scientists. We're breaking it down, and some of the areas that were a bit gray last week, I've given you the buttons to push for WhatsApp, 055 11 11 997. DNA by way of landline is 0302 216 541. You must match all those things before you get through. Otherwise, you are excluded from eligibles to call, right? As you learn, you use the terminology. So let's move forward. So we've got all these things in place, right? A sample has duly been taken. We have duly identified and authenticated reference, ABC, right? We're dealing with a child, a mother, and an alleged or probable father. Okay, this process is done. It goes through various stages, and a report or a result is, should I say, arrived at. Now, we have 3 persons. You've gotten consent for all of them, okay? Are they all entitled to the report? And is the report given to all of them?
Okay, so it also depends on the type of test, whether it was a legal request or a walk-in.
Okay.
If it's a legal request, most of the time, if the request came through the court with the registrar or a witness from the court,
All right.
then the result is sent to the registrar directly.
To the court.
Yes, a copy
Okay.
is not sent to the parties. The parties can get their copies from the court or
The
the
court.
registrar.
Okay.
However, if it's a walk-in, at the registration point where you are seeking consent,
All right.
we clarify that, please, where should we send the results?
Okay.
Do you have an email we should send the result to, or you want to come and collect the results physically?
Okay.
Do you want both of you to come and pick up the report, and we document these things?
Okay.
So that when the report is ready, whatever we agreed on before the test, we follow it strictly.
Okay.
Let's not forget, biomedical scientists are not lawyers. We are scientists. But we try to stay within our ethics of profession. So whatever you state, we follow.
Okay.
So, for instance, you want to have copies, even for the child, we print those 3 copies.
Okay.
Sometimes to be at your cost, or to be, if it's just a print.
All right, understood.
And it's verified, and you can pick them up.
So you do no specific facility-based disclosure. You are not telling people the results on your premises.
Yes,
Never.
so that is also one thing about our ethics.
All right.
So, for instance, if you come to our lab
Mm.
where we used to do paternity, the person who receives the client know the names. The one who works on the samples only know figures or
figure.
numbers, what we call pathology numbers.
Right.
We give them IDs.
Okay.
So I work with IDs, generate my profiles, generate my everything, and I send it back to the person who decoded the names into IDs.
Okay.
So it is only most of the
So
time.
you are like WAEC, you are dealing with index numbers.
Yes, you are just
Exactly.
dealing with numbers.
All
You
right.
finish your analysis and you give it to the other person. But we try to remain as professional as possible.
So I just want you to hit it quickly. Augustine, do you tell people the results when they pick up the result? Do you tell them the outcome? Do you disclose outcomes?
We don't disclose outcomes to the person if there is a sampler.
Okay.
Now I'm taking you through our terms.
And that's why I brought you.
Okay.
Right.
Even the sampler
Mm-hmm.
during set made mention that during the registration or the consent,
Okay.
they will ask you certain things.
Okay.
Okay. If you know how to read and write
Mm-hmm.
and you consent with the sampler
So you are competent.
that
Right.
I want my test to be disclosed to me in front of you,
Okay.
then when you pick up, it's done.
All right.
Else, nothing.
Right. So those things are clearly
Yes.
spelled out,
Yeah.
and you must have the competence and the insight to understand, right?
Yes.
And consent to same.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Agbena. Right. This is good afternoon, please. Is there any relationship between father and child in terms of blood groups? This is from Michael in Spintex. Click, click, click. So, the father is dead. There is a challenge of the paternity. When you start the thing in the middle, then I make. All right. So there's a dead father. There's a challenge of the paternity of the child. What can be done? This is from Francis from Kwame in Accra. Let's hold on to that, okay? Deceased father. So the probable father is no longer with us, right? Abeku, can you show the next one? Or you're giving power back to me? That's all? All right, okay. So is there a relationship between paternity or fatherhood and your blood group, right? And then what happens when the father is deceased, dead and gone?
Okay, let me take the first one first, and Seth may add.
So you're taking the blood group one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's be as brief as possible so that we can take calls. Yeah.
Okay, Nortey. Blood groupings were at first used as the determinant of fatherhood.
Okay.
But then science improved.
Right.
Then we saw that yes, your blood group, you may have recessive.
Right. Things which are hidden.
Yes.
All right.
Which may not show.
All right.
Okay. But it's there. For instance, you may be AO and your A is dominant.
Right.
So you may get the A, but you may not get the O.
Right.
But your descendant may get the O and may not get the A.
All right.
Okay. That thing
so what
became...
just a second. What Augustine is saying is that you may have features which are not visible.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But they may still be in your lineage.
Yes.
And therefore can be traced.
Yes.
And he's also said that we used to rely on blood group to ascertain or determine parentage or fatherhood until we got a higher, more dependable gold standard, which is the DNA.
Exactly.
All right. I hope I've interpreted right.
You've done well.
Very good. Go ahead.
You very soon you may be certified as.
I'll be collecting samples.
Yes.
So okay.
So on that note,
on
that note, we ceased to have blood grouping being the ultimate determinant.
Right. Okay, great. So that does not mean your blood group is not important.
No.
Right? You asked a question linking it to fatherhood, and I think you've gotten the best explanation. Now, Seth, father is dead. We are still fighting. You know, some fights don't end with death. In fact, they even increase. Right? Whose sample do we use?
So before that, let me also add that blood group can only exclude who is not the father. Blood group cannot tell that you are the father.
Who is the father?
So blood group can only say you are
cannot
probably
be
not the father.
Right.
And you can only use blood when you have all the three.
Okay.
But for DNA, you can use the alleged father and the child alone without the mother.
Great.
Now, if the person is deceased and you still want to find the fatherhood, one, it still comes down to whether it's legal or working.
Whether
if
it's
legal,
voluntary or court-based.
Yes, if it's a court-based, court can actually order for exhumation of the body for us to take a part of what we can get, the bone or the teeth or anything that we can get the DNA from. So court does that. And we've done some before.
Okay.
And the memory of Dr. said, may he rest in peace. He led us to do that.
Okay.
However, if the father is dead and the father has a blood brother from the same mother and father,
okay,
and the two families can prove that this is the blood brother of the deceased from the same mother and father, they might not have birth set to prove, but if the two families say that, oh, this brother is the brother of the deceased from the same father or mother, or if we know the son of the deceased and we know that this is the son of the deceased and the other contentious focused son is there, we can also use the son to prove siblingship.
Okay.
That are these two.
People have used some of these proxies you are talking about, and it has brought more trouble.
Yes.
Right? Because you assume this is the son.
Yes.
Proven and known.
Yes.
We now use him as a standard, and then
it doesn't. Yes.
That doesn't go through.
That's why we say that before the test
right,
is performed, then we release our results. You must certify these things.
Okay, great stuff. 36 minutes past the hour 2 on Joy 99.7. And these are important things. Sometimes you go and beat your chest. I am the blood relation of this person. The scientist will take you at your word, but book no lie.
Yes.
So this is where we're going. Your questions are welcome. WhatsApp 055 1111 997. Phone line is active 0302216541. Get all the strands right before you get through. That's DNA. I've got this one. It said, tuned in and enjoying. You must enjoy because this is Joy 99.7 FM. No pain here. May I raise a question? Will a paternity test be accurate if the individual has been treated for cancer and has gone through autologous stem cell transplant, the Gatti in DC. I asked this thing about transplants and things last week, but we'll address it. Thanks for enjoying the program and asking a very discerning question. If a woman claims the child was swapped at the hospital, how would you verify the veracity of her claim? Again, the same processes.
Yeah, the same process.
If it's your child and it has been swapped, then the DNA and the offside rule will show. In fact, that is where DNA and the VAR in soccer are alike, right? Because now we play back. You say you are the mother, the baby was stolen or swapped, right? So now we go into it and we look at it. So I don't know whether I'm wrong. Dennis, have I done the right thing? Hello,
Yeah,
Dennis.
so
Yes.
that's exactly the case. In that case, you just be dealing with maternity testing, where you want to be sure whether that is the mother of the child. But it probably will not be able to tell you who the mother is should the one you are suspecting fail, because you need whoever might have been the child for which the swapping occurred in the facility.
Okay.
But of course, as you are moving to the area of errors and some of the limitations and challenges that probably DNA is likely to come up with, you may also come to know that there have been instances, and in fact, some legal standing cases that had occurred before,
Right.
that mothers that had done similar tests for even two of their children that she knew they were hers, came out to suggest that she wasn't the mother. And that brought up another matter altogether with some of the things we'll be talking about.
Right.
But
So,
that's
we'll
maternity
proceed.
testing,
Yeah,
as you
we'll proceed to that maternal testing or maternity testing. All testing is testing, right? Sometimes when you pass an exam, you boldly beat your chest and say they gave you distinction, or you got distinction rather, right? And then when you fail, you say they gave you fail, right? The same might apply. My numbers are 0302-216541. WhatsApp is 055-11-11-997. Ultimate Health is the program. The frequency is Joy 99.7 FM. We're discussing, demystifying, breaking down, right? Dissecting DNA and paternity testing, and you are most welcome to join us. My guest on Zoom, Dr. Dennis Edujesi. He's a fellow of the West African Postgraduate College of Medical Laboratory Science. He's an immunologist with a PhD in that field, and he's also the PRO of the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists. Augustine Sego in the studio is the chief biomedical scientist. He's the head of the clinical and research laboratory at the Ghana Infectious Diseases Center. Big men in the studio. That's why very soon we'll have our own references. And then Seth Ajiman is a deputy chief biomedical scientist, fellow of the West African Postgraduate Science College of Medicine or Medical Laboratory Science, and he's also a laboratory scientist with Yemachi Biotech, and they are all fellows of the I believe the West African College. If I'm wrong, they can correct me. I will change their DNA. I have a caller on the line already. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please tell us where you're calling from and your name, and then go ahead quickly.
Yeah, Amy from La Paz. Yeah, well done to the team. My question boils down to my blood group. My husband is AB positive, and I, the wife, O positive. But then last child was O negative. And a loved man one time asked him if he was having a different father. And I wasn't happy with it when I heard it. I just want to know why that question can come up. Thank you.
So just quickly, your blood group again, and that of your husband and that of your child.
Yeah, it's AB.
Just quickly.
Mine O positive. My husband's AB positive. Other siblings, other children, some are A, some are AB, some are O, all positive. But this one was O negative.
Okay. And then you've had the bad experience where a question has been raised by somebody who works in a lab.
Behind me.
All right. Okay. And you're asking why this question should come about. All right. This one says, hello, with the issue of a late father, I am convinced with the exhumation of the corpse, but with that of a sibling, brother or sister, from same parents. What if the sibling is even questionable? That's what I brought up. This is Kweku from Mampong, Ekwapim. But don't worry, where you are from, they are getting your referencing very soon. We'll check all of you. Right. But with direct specific reference to what the lady has just asked, and my phone line is still active, 0302216541. This difference or discrepancy, variation in blood group has raised an issue. She's uncomfortable with it. She's given us the denominators, right? Can you give her a response?
Yeah, for me, it is as I said, perhaps the negative was a recessive. Okay. So it was a hidden.
Okay.
Maybe the child pulled it from the genes that the grandparent.
So it's like an application that you haven't activated on your phone, but it's on your phone.
Yes.
All right. So it is possible that it doesn't negate or exclude the father.
It is
possible. All right. How does she verify this?
The same come to DNA.
So on the level of blood group, she's exhausted the options. She must go further for a DNA test. Is that what you're saying?
Even that blood grouping, okay, you have to actually see to it that that person who did it did not make.
So they didn't make an error. So we can check that again.
Yes.
And then failing any other outcome, we can go higher to the gold standard, the DNA. Okay, great. I have a caller on the line. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Oti.
Yes, good afternoon. Who am I speaking to?
Oti from Telemakom.
Oti, as fast as possible. You're most welcome.
Thank you. I think next month is a Ghana Day. So next week it will be Ghana month. So we go.
You have corrected the DNA. You said day. Now you've made it month. Go ahead.
Yeah, month. Yeah, Ghana month. Yeah. No, my question is, one issue come around. One of our brothers who just in abroad and he know he for a different father, and this father passed away. This man have died 15 years, and now they say that guy is the father of that man. That man have died, and that man you don't have any child. So how can they going to know it is real father? Because some issue come abroad and
so both the father, the alleged father, and the alleged son both are dead.
No, the son is there.
The son is in Germany or
abroad.
Abroad. Okay, sorry.
Abroad,
yeah.
Yes. So some issue came around. That's why the guy came, but the father have died 15 years.
Okay.
Apart from him, the father too don't have any son.
Okay. So he's the only one.
Yeah,
so we have answered that already.
Yeah,
we can
prove relationship.
Yes, we have answered that already. And my guess, right?
Yeah, we can
the
prove
same
relationship.
Thing. Right.
Yes, you can prove relationship. It's not always paternity as in father child, but we can also prove relationship.
Prove that is related.
The child is actually from the deceased father's family.
All right. Okay. Great stuff. My phone line is active 0302216541. WhatsApp is 05511119997. The man I believe to be my father died many years ago, but I have been told he was not my biological father. The only thing that I have that might have his DNA on it is some wire stitches from a surgery he had in 1989. Now we're getting into CSI. Right. Is it possible that there could be usable DNA on these stitches? This is from Dagati in DC. Right? 1989, he has some stitches.
Possible.
It is possible.
It's possible.
All right.
Yeah.
So he can...
Yeah, he can present that for testing, and if you are able to extract some DNA, we can use it, yes.
Okay. Hi, Nortey. Please, I want to become a laboratory technician. I'm a maths and science student from UCC, University of Constant Concentration. I am doing maths and physics. Please ask your panel where I can start from. This is from Michael Komla. Dennis, PRO.
Yes, sir.
Quick answer to that one.
So he's already in the university or senior high?
UCC.
Yeah, so there is an approved program in medical laboratory science in UCC. So he can just talk to the department. For they could assess what he's done basically and how they can assist him to switch over.
Okay.
Or probably wherever he could continue from. So that shouldn't be a big problem at all. He can just contact the school They will assess what he has now, the knowledge is gained,
Okay.
and see what he needs to top up and start from somewhere.
Great stuff, great stuff, great stuff. I'm enjoying this. Now, some of these errors are heartbreaking or shattering, right? And people will argue and argue. Dennis has raised the issue, and there's a technical term for that. We'll go into some of these areas. But before I come to you, Dennis, very quickly, what are the things that can account for some of these errors or discrepancies that shock so many people, apart from the fact that the truth is now being, should I say, revealed? Are there any reasons or grounds for some of these errors, such that if you, the scientists, go back into it to verify, you might be able to trace that to at polling station B, there was overvoting, right?
Yeah.
Are there things you can do on your level to look out for, identify possible or probable errors in the process?
Yeah, Nortey, let me take the word from Dennis and make attempt of it.
Okay.
By example.
Okay.
Okay, you are the scientist, you are working on these samples, okay?
Mhm.
That's why where the electrophoresis machine will be,
Right.
you have to make that room sterile as possible.
Okay. So you're talking about the lab conditions.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Once we were doing this, but one of our colleagues had catarrh.
Mm-hmm.
If we hadn't sampled all of us and we knew all of us our profile,
Mm-hmm.
we would have given one of us our profile
Mm-hmm.
to somebody because the person had flu and was sneezing all around.
Uh-oh.
Okay? So
So the first thing you are hitting on is that the lab conditions must meet specific
must meet.
scientific criteria.
Yes.
All right. And anytime you issue a report, you are actually attesting to the fact that all these conditions
Were
were met.
Were met.
All right. That's one point. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
And additionally to some modification of our own genes,
So our genes can also release variations just like COVID.
mutations.
Right.
But the mutations do not affect this specific point of the DNA that we call, the alleles that it is called.
Right.
Okay? But we shouldn't make an attempt to say that it is perfect,
Okay.
100%.
Right.
It could happen.
That is why you give or derive a
99
paternity index.
Index.
Okay. Great stuff, right? This one says, good afternoon, Nortey. Why should DNA be requested in times of confusion in marriage? What is the difference between birth DNA and blood DNA? Douglas from DC. These DC people, I think the D is for DNA. Why should it be requested when you know we are fighting?
Yeah, that is also simple.
Ah.
In fact, when we were starting the DNA,
Mhm.
I was called actually to the court,
Mm-hmm.
Accra High Court,
Okay.
to ask specific questions, and this question came in,
Right.
and my answer was that yes, there may be some attribution of this test
All right.
to the confusion, but the test will solve most of the confusions.
Right. That's the conclusive way to settle all these things. All the
Yes.
shouting and all the thing doesn't help. Get the
Exactly.
scientific solution.
Exactly.
All right, great. Dennis, I'm coming to you. You sent me something which gave me headaches. I had seen it elsewhere, but I dodged it because I thought, that's one of the reasons I did part 2. I don't know how to pronounce it, but chimera, is that right?
Yes.
Chimera.
Chimera. Okay. Well,
Chimera.
chimera, right? You brought this out. I had read it somewhere, but what is it and how can it account for some of the mistakes or errors?
Yeah. So, thank you. Before I quickly
You
take
keep
that,
wait, hang on. You keep adding me to my DNA. I reject it. Call me Nortey by nature or Nortey.
Me not
by
idea.
nature,
But I am told that every Nortey is a knee.
It's a knee.
I have fought it from. In fact, some used to even tell me that every Nortey is C Nortey, right? Please
Or every
Senior
note
Secretary.
has dia.
correct my DNA. Nortey, go ahead, please, very quickly.
So, Senior Secretary, I guess the proofreading I'm doing is having some errors in there. So, I'm checking it and I'm correcting it.
Yes,
So,
chimera. Let's explain that. I want my listeners to grow.
Yeah, quickly before I take that, you know the issue of the AB and the O positive that our dear lady and the listener had brought up.
Right.
First of all, I think it's quite unfortunate that whoever was working on her sample should have gone behind to ask that question. That's very unethical. It wasn't expected at all.
Right.
But I just want to bring in the context that blood grouping can be done at several levels. And these are the reasons why you call for standards and appropriate way of dealing with them.
Okay.
The person probably might be using what we call the tile method. They are just putting drops of blood on a tile, and then you rock it within a time. And if there is a reaction, you say it's this and that and that and that.
All right.
It has a lot of limitations. However, when you have done that and you want to go further to talk more efficiently and effectively, you have to probably do what we call the tube method. At times, you even have to go to the extent of incubating to make sure there are no hidden proteins or whatever, which probably because of temperature reasons couldn't react. And for that matter, you had reported with the limitations that you had at that level. But having said that, it's quite uncalled for any professional to have acted in that manner.
Okay.
Chimera, as you had mentioned, it is just one thing that actually also gives another headache to DNA testing. It's quite, it's rare.
Okay.
But this had come up in a particular instance where a woman, having gone through divorce with the 2 kids at the court process, was found out not to be the mother of the 2 children. In fact, people had seen her pregnant and everything, but the test had suggested otherwise. And it was later found out when they were using cells from the buccal cavity or other parts, the blood and stuff, it was still showing negative against the 2 children. So they had to move further and go for cells from the cervix. That is when they saw cells that actually took a reaction with those children. And the long and short is that people probably can have fertilization of 2 ova. That is the eggs from the woman being fertilized by 2 different sperms, and they all seed and start the process of.
Dennis, if I can just break in, 2 different sperm from 2 different men or 2 different.
The same man.
The same man.
The same man.
Okay.
But 2 different. You know, usually we know that it's 1 sperm, 1 egg.
Of
Then
course.
it forms whatever develops to the baby.
Okay.
But in what we call the hyperovulation, a lot of eggs around, you can have 2 sperms fertilizing 2 eggs.
Is that the same as the hyper fecundity or whatever? Is that the same thing?
Well, hyperfecundity, that person is very fertile, and probably if you even jump over a urine of a man, you are likely to be pregnant.
Ouch. So Dennis, in that case, why doesn't it just give us twins? Why does it create this? Why does it create this confusion in one person?
So what happens is that in the process of development, one of the fertilized eggs ends up dissolving. So you have only 1 child that comes forth.
Okay.
But the second one may end up being part of that one that developed and grew to a child that was giving birth.
Okay.
So this will be somebody walking around that is almost like a twin, but one person walking around.
Wow. So in this instance you mentioned, the woman had gone to court after a divorce. The 2 children she claims and knows to be her own. The initial testing proved or excluded her as the mother. And then you went further to do a sample from her cervix.
Yes.
Where you then got a confirmation that she was indeed the mother, right?
Yes.
Was it a legal process that pushed you to go further, or is this an option that people can typically and normally request for?
So that is in fact the case Lydia Fairchild and her chimerism, that was in 2002.
Okay.
And was actually published in one of the England journals.
Wow.
It was a legal case in the US that actually happened.
Okay.
And so the long and short is that this person might have been a product of 2 fertilized eggs.
All right.
One got dissolved, and for that matter, they were not identical twins.
Wow.
They were fraternal. So the one that got dissolved in this woman, the part of it, that is not the one walking around. It's what probably might have been used to check the children that are walking around.
Wow.
In that case, there won't be any positive reaction. There was a similar instance. A man had about 10% of her sperm cells being that of the dissolved brother or the dissolved that never ended up as a human being.
Wow.
And that fathered a child, that they went further to do a paternity test, and it also showed up the man was not the father of the child.
My goodness. My
Rather,
goodness.
because of chimerism,
Right.
the 10% which had come from the dissolved twin brother was what actually had fathered the child. And for
Okay.
that matter, 90% of the chance, the man was never going to come out positive as a child,
Wow.
as the father of the child. So these are some challenges that
Right.
you are likely to have if you don't probe further.
Okay.
You may end up concluding that
All
this
right.
is not the father, this is not the mother, and that can equally add up to the fuse that will be going on even in the legal process.
Great stuff. Awesome stuff. And then on that headache triggering note, I need to thank my guest, but very quickly, Mr. Sego, just a quick answer. Should we be able to see at any facility some certificate that shows that this is an accredited facility because of all these things that higher knowledge quickly resolves? Should we, is there something, is it a certificate? What is it? From who? Just quickly.
Yeah, it may come from the DNA analyst
Right.
group.
Okay.
Okay, but that one.
What will
if
you see
have-
when you walk into a lab? Is it just a certificate that shows they can practice, or is this accreditation is there?
HEFRA.
HEFRA.
will do that.
Okay.
And then if you have international accreditation,
Okay.
also.
All right. Great stuff. Many thanks, Seth Ajiman, Augustine Sego, and Dr. Dennis Edu JC. I always get his DNA mixed up. But this has been mind-blowing, but most informative, and I hope most transformative for our listeners. There are more questions. Google, go and learn chimera. Hold on to some of these things that may cause errors, and if in doubt, seek a professional. And I'm glad that it was pointed out the behavior of that lab professional in that example given about the blood group was unethical and unprofessional. Many thanks to Abeku Sankofi, my producer, who continues to be ethical and professional. And to you, my discerning listeners, I hand over to my not so dissolved twin brother, Bile, to bring you Sunday Rhythms, which definitely has Joy 99.7 FM DNA. Stick and stay. Don't go away. My name is Nortey by nature. I'm out.